Hi, my name is Marisol Barrero, and I am the Safety Innovations Manager for Toyota Motor North America. This session's objectives are to learn how Toyota is using exoskeletons, wearable sensors, and virtual reality to enhance safety, to grasp the benefits measured in applications and trials, and to understand the strengths and challenges of these emerging technologies as relevant to manufacturing, especially at Toyota. So first, a little bit about Toyota Motor North America. Within the company's manufacturing pillar, we are comprised of 15 locations, mostly in the US, but also located in Canada and Mexico. Our main operations headquarters is based in Plano, Texas. R&D is based in Michigan, and engineering is based in Georgetown, Kentucky, where I am personally located. The only way of discovering the limits of the possible is to venture a little way past them, into the impossible. Arthur C. Clarke. This quote is powerful. For me, in the world of safety, it is right on target. People and organizations, even very large ones such as Toyota, are very much tied to the current way of doing things, even if it's not the best or most efficient way, because the usual creates a feeling of comfort and predictability. Only by incrementally moving beyond the possible can we find the new possible or the impossible. This is the safety technology roadmap that I have been following in recent years. We are currently in the process of updating for next year and beyond. This roadmap is a marriage of safety problems, especially in the earlier phases, when we were reacting to the need for technology in our cranes and powered industrial vehicles, and emerging technology trends. The middle to latter phases of this roadmap don't have a specific end goal in mind, but instead focus on how best to utilize the technology to enhance safety. So first, I'll start with exoskeletons because the success of that program has certainly paved the way for the exploration of additional technologies. At this time, we have more than 500 shoulder exoskeletons deployed across our operations, most of which are at our 6 vehicle assembly plants, as they are the locations with overhead work. We started out with shoulder exoskeletons as they are the most robust exoskeleton technologies at the time, with the most vendor choices, which is still the case to this day. These approximately 500 devices include optional and required usage as personal protective equipment, or PPE. To quickly walk you through the process, we have an existing ergonomics assessment tool that now has a built-in flag to signal that a process may benefit from a shoulder exoskeleton. This flag is based on percentage cycle time spent in overhead postures. Because PPE is the lowest form of control, prior to having anyone wear an exoskeleton, the plants examine whether a different type of control is feasible, such as an assist or even a process change. If there is indeed no other feasible control, a safety risk assessment is done to ensure that wearing the exoskeleton won't result in increased risk to the team member or those around the team member. An example of a safety risk would be entanglement with a machine or equipment. If the exoskeleton passes, we then say that the exoskeleton is required as PPE for the process, and all team members who work that process are required to have their own device. In general, our team members have reported greater comfort and lower ratings of perceived exertion when using the devices. In addition, we have confirmed muscle fatigue reduction through 2 separate electromyography or EMG studies. In 2017, we started trialing the devices and gradually moved through systems development throughout 2018, such as developing the flagging tool to note where exoskeletons might be beneficial. In 2018, we also wrote our internal exoskeleton standard with help from representatives from each plant. Finally, in 2019, we implemented our required usage of exoskeletons as PPE only in processes that meet certain criteria, which I just walked you through. You can see that this was not an overnight achievement, and that we only require them after long study and feedback. Of course, no implementation is without problems. In 2020, we have concentrated in understanding the reasons why we have not been able to implement exoskeletons on certain processes, and we are looking for ways to improve on that. Before I walk you through some difficulties, I will note that we have confirmed that shoulder exoskeletons have resulted in lower injuries and costs. What you see here is the shoulder-related workers' compensation costs for all of the Indiana plant processes that were selected as exoskeleton required jobs. You can see that once deployed, the injuries fell to zero. I'm happy to report that this is still the case today, several years later. Although I am not allowed to reveal exact figures, I will note that this is a significant positive impact to the safety of our team members. Unfortunately, we are not always successful at implementing shoulder exoskeletons. Despite all of their work, our plants report that they have been successful at implementing them only about 50% of the time. You can see the reasons listed here. The top reason is dynamic work, where our team members find it uncomfortable to repeatedly lower the arms from an overhead posture because they are met with downward resistance from the passive device. We are starting a research partnership with a university to study this problem and how to improve outcomes. Another common problem is labeled bending in cab. What this means is that our team members are having difficulty with bending, moving their trunk, and/or getting into the vehicle due to wearing a device. We are trying to develop a manual to address common problems and corresponding solutions. There is definitely a long road ahead, yet because we now know the positive impact that these devices can yield to team members' lives like Bob, who is pictured here, and to company profitability when they are properly implemented, we will continue to study different devices and hone our process. We started out with the shoulder, but we certainly have concerns with additional body regions. This pie chart shows US injuries across a 20-year period. Although the arms, shoulders come first, they are closely followed by the legs, hands, and back. As such, we are trying to apply similar exoskeleton technology to these other regions. First, I'll cover the hands. The Bioservo Ironhand is a powered hand exoskeleton that can be worn alone or under a required industrial glove. It is meant to assist with grip-intensive tasks, and by reducing the amount of force that the hand applies, it may reduce discomfort and injuries. It is typically worn on one hand, typically the dominant hand or the hand that is doing the majority of the work. When searching for hand exoskeleton solutions, this product emerged as the sole solution that was ready for testing. The components of the Bioservo system are the power pack, which is offered in a backpack or a hip pack, which is not pictured here, the cord, the arm strap, the remote control, which ties to the strap, and the glove itself. The power pack supplies power to a single glove. So how does it work? Simply put, the system calculates the overall force that needs to be applied by the hand and assists the user by applying a portion of that force through artificial tendons. Essentially, the user can get the job done by biomechanically generating less force than would normally be required. The Ironhand has as its foundation Bioservo's original product called the Carbon Hand, which is actually a medical device that can assist users with impaired hand strength arising from a variety of medical conditions. We looked for hand-intensive processes in our Kentucky plant weld shop and trialed the device on 8 willing team members during the fall of 2019. The processes primarily involved the operating of various hand tools. Although team members trialed for 10 days total, there was considerable communication and ramp up prior to using the exoskeleton for that amount of time. All team members wore the Ironhand glove with a Kevlar glove on top. Since weld shop literally welds together sharp metal parts, a cut-resistant glove is a PPE requirement. Results for the trial are framed in hand activity level scores, which the Ironhand measures digitally. First, a quick background on this tool. It is an external tool that comes by way of ACGIH, the American Congress of Governmental Industrial Hygienists, and it assigns risk of musculoskeletal hand injury by assessing repetition and force. The HAL also generates an action limit, above which monitoring of the task is highly recommended. In general, exposure to higher HAL rated tasks has been linked to more musculoskeletal hand injuries. In terms of study results, when using the Bioservo Ironhand, there was a highly statistical reduction of HAL with the glove as compared to without. This means that the glove assisted the user. For 3 of our team members, the Ironhand lowered the HAL below the action limit. So great numerical results, but how did the team members really feel about it? Well, They identified value in using the system as the job felt easier, but they generally noted that the system had too many concerns at this time to offset its value. Top concerns were the weight of the power pack and the wearing of 2 gloves, which resulted in difficulty manipulating small parts, such as bolts, and decreased tactile feedback, which would be important in tasks such as flushness and burr checks. In addition, the fingers of some gloves would occasionally stick, not allowing team members to return to starting hand position. In some instances, fingers would not engage at all. So in general, this signals that a system with all the kinks worked out would offer good value. Similar to what we have done with shoulder exoskeletons, we anticipate that a hand exoskeleton would be useful only in limited processes that meet certain criteria. Based on what we saw in the pilot, what we would look for are processes that are high risk for hand MSDs, use jigs or tools for more than 60% of the cycle time, and do not require small parts manipulation or high tactile feedback with the instrumented hand. And of course, we would check that no other feasible control is possible and that the devices do not pose a safety risk. We definitely expect to update portions of this process decision flowchart as we study further. Bioservo has made several enhancements to their product, which lead us to believe that our team members would find even greater value and comfort by using the Ironhand. Thus, we are currently planning for a longer trial to run in the first quarter of next year. Hopefully, for EWTS 2021, I will have some good results to share with you all. There are many opportunities for us to test back exoskeletons and exosuits. In the past, we have run some short user acceptance trials, and our team members have noted that while they see the potential value with back exoskeletons, the units they tested were too uncomfortable for long-term wear. In the last few months, additional back exoskeletons and suits have been released to the market with a focus on comfort through soft fabrics and inclusive wear, particularly for women. Although we have been heavily impacted by COVID-19 and bringing visitors on site, we're looking forward to soon getting back underway with such exploration. Moving on to a different type of wearable sensors. We are trialing a few different wearable sensors, including the Strongarm Fuse platform, which uses machine learning to capture and analyze trunk movements and can give haptic feedback, aka vibration or a buzz, to assist team members in improving their lifting technique. The first company-level goal of this innovation is to reduce ergonomics injuries. The second goal is to reduce the time involved in the current manual assessment tool. Each process requires about 6 hours of analysis. From a team member standpoint, you simply grab the sensor at the start of the shift and click it into your personalized harness, and the sensor does the rest. This sensor uses IMUs, or inertial measurement units, to automatically collect and compute motion variables, such as forward bend angle, lifting rate, and acceleration. When all data gets computed, every team member receives a personal safety score. The higher the score, the better the safety performance. The Fuse can also compute a process safety score by grouping all members working the process. Process and personal scores allow safety to investigate engineering controls and also to coach team members who are not moving as safely as others. We did a 2-month trial in our Indiana plant in the fall of 2019 with about 120 team members, and we had very favorable results. Not only did we see a 95% reduction in the time to complete assessments, but also 83% of team members improved their lifting techniques from haptics alone. By the end of the trial, we saw an overall risk reduction of 15%. Fuse truly introduces a new paradigm in safety, where the assessment tool is also a control. The configurable haptic feedback signals team members when they are engaged in high-risk postures, reminding them to improve their technique. The concept of a score introduces a friendly competition. We commonly heard team members reporting their daily safety scores and jokingly encouraging each other to beat these scores. And again, instead of having a single process score on record, we can now have personalized scores to truly capture the unique conditions for each team member, not just the average team member. In case you're wondering, yes, there were some early concerns regarding monitoring. However, these went away during the trial, as team members saw the data that was being reported and that nothing would be used against them in any way. In fact, Strongarm writes into their contract that their technology must never be used for punitive measures. Other concerns were heat from the sensor itself and the harness fit, particularly for our female team members. We also need more data to understand how injuries themselves will be impacted as compared to just risk. In the 2-month trial, it was simply too short to assess. And finally, how long should our team members wear the sensors? Should it be constant or periodic wear? How long after stopping its use would behavior return to baseline? These are all items that we will be studying in a larger trial starting next calendar year. Finally, VR. We all know it well. It's not just the ergonomics injuries that we want wearables to assist us with at Toyota. In 2019, the top causes for regional acute incidents, which are injuries such as slips, trips, falls, contusions, and lacerations, were number 1, incorrect method used, number 2, improper training, and number 3, lack of awareness. These 3 causes accounted for 66% of total acute incidents. This information also signals an opportunity to enhance our training in order to increase retention of training information. We know from Edgar Dale's Cone of Learning that we tend to remember based on our level of involvement. We recognized at Toyota that our safety training courses were mostly utilizing passive, verbal, and visual receiving toward the top of the pyramid, which are elements that do not contribute to high retention. By introducing VR training enhancements, we hope to effectively simulate real experiences. So while we could never expose our team members to actual falling or crushing hazards just for the sake of training, we can show them the next best thing. While one can argue that all training can benefit from VR enhancement, we are choosing to concentrate on safety training around 3 key areas: high-risk tasks, difficult to simulate, and high retention crucial. So while we won't be jumping to enhance our ergonomics training program in the near future, we will be prioritizing items such as lockout and electrical safe work practices. We are trying to answer many questions related to VR in a manufacturing environment. For example, where do we hold training? In a central area? Can we keep the headsets in a local production team area, such as a break zone? Can regular people operate headsets easily, or do they need tech support? How do we cycle team members through? Some of our plants have more than 10,000 team members under one roof. What is the optimal length for content in a production environment? What is best, 360 video or computer-generated imagery, or CGI? How can we reduce the risk of cyber sickness? What are some potential predictors of cyber sickness? We are currently conducting a trial at our Texas plant to understand more. Unfortunately, this trial has been heavily impacted by COVID-19. Hopefully this time next year, I will have trial results available. I hope you've enjoyed the examples that I have shared today. At Toyota, safety is definitely venturing slowly into the impossible through the use of wearable devices. It will be a slow, unpaved, and curved road, and it will most surely be bumpy. However, I have no doubt that it will lead to a better, safer future for our team members. Before I leave, I will pass on a couple messages to the technology producers out there. First, thank you for your innovations. Thank you for your creative spirit. Technology moves fast, but perceived human needs move slowly, like this adorable sloth. I realize that if you work in this field, you think that you have the latest and greatest, but the company you're trying to sell it to will likely take some time to understand why your way is better. After all, they've been doing okay for some time. So listen, try to address concerns and always look to improve your product. Most of all, be patient and attentive. These days, good technology alone is simply not enough. Lastly, keep in mind your wearable is not the only fish in the sea, literally. You might need to work alongside other wearables. You might need to work alongside other not-so-techy databases or systems that should no longer be in use but simply are. Because things are not going to transform into a simple IoT-driven system overnight. In short, work together and be open to building a wearables ecosystem. And finally, to all, thank you for your time. I'm happy to connect with you further if you wish. Thanks.